Picture it, Los Angeles, 2025.
Oh, welcome to Out on the Lanai, the only Golden Girls podcast you're ever going to need to listen to. I am HAlanScott / Sadie Pines.
I'm Kerri Doherty, and today we are talking about The Golden Girls, 40 Years of Laughter and Friendship, the documentary that aired last week on Hulu and featured a few of our favorite folks in the Golden Girls community, as well as Susan Harris, which was amazing. So we watched, we're ready to talk. We have our thoughts.
We have thoughts. We're less saucy from last week, although I'm still a little saucy. Let me just say that right now. I'm still a little saucy. But I'm less saucy as I was last week.
Yeah, you were pretty saucy. You were like
I'm still saucy.
Like Sophia's marinara.
There are some voices missing from the program that I feel are an injustice. Mark Sotkin being one of them. I'm shocked by. Stan Zimmerman, I think, is one of the most. I mean, there's lots of writers, and there were plenty of writers mentioned in the doc, of course. But I do think if I had to argue out of every writer to come out of the Golden Girls, with the exception, of course, of Susan Harris, who is a genius and incredible, Stan Zimmerman is the most public / one of the more reliable voices on the writers from the Golden Girl, in my opinion. I'm biased, of course, because I love Stan so much. But that said, I think Stan was I miss Stan in this one.
I miss Stan for sure. People I were very excited to see. I was excited to see Cindy Fee.
Yes.
Jim Colucci.
Doesn't Cindy look amazing?
She looks amazing. I was excited to see her, Jim Colucci. Of course, our good friend Marsha Posner-Williams.
Yes.
I was excited to see footage from Golden Con.
Yes.
I was excited to see Danielle Soto, Dr. Cheesecake, who hosts Trivia Night.
What a surprise. What a surprise. I loved that. I did not know that was happening. I'm so glad she's in that.
Danielle and I have been texting on the side, so yeah. Because she was interviewed for it as well, but they played the trivia stuff. But I was so excited when I saw her, and Vince Kelly from Golden Girls: The Laughs Continue, which we've had them on our podcast. I was so glad that they were featured because they work so hard on that live show that they do, and I adore Vince, so I was very happy. And then of course, Susan Harris, like a unicorn
who's never seen, like, you never see her. So it was so lovely to see her. Although, Kerri, I do think we should address the elephant in the room, because everyone who watched that, every message I got, everything I got from this special was, why did they only feature the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast? And I'm just going to address it right up top.
I got a lot of that too.
I'm just going to address, because I know that's what you all are thinking. And also, too, I should probably address, because we haven't brought them up really at all. And I want to, I think I should say something.
Be my guest. I got nothing.
So, I mean, well, you don't know them. I know them. I know them both. I've met them both. They're lovely, lovely people. And as I've always said, every single time I've said it for years on this podcast, that there's not just one Golden Girls podcast for you. There are many Golden Girls podcasts for you. And I will say we are the first Golden Girls podcast. And if I am remiss of anything that is missing from that ABC special on the Golden Girls, it is that we weren't mentioned as the first podcast. Thank you. But also that Kerri Doherty is not featured in I wanted her. The producer talked to her. They didn't, whatever. But that said, yes, the Golden Girls Deep Dive, they obviously were throughout the special. Both of them were. And good for them is what I'm going to say. God bless. Go forth. We are very happy with the audience we have. It would have been nice to have a little bit of recognition. I'm not going to say it wouldn't have been nice, but
11 years, people, 11 years of our life dedicated to doing this podcast.
No shade to any other one, because there are so many wonderful Golden Girls podcasts out there for you to listen to. And I'm just glad that some of the other podcasts recognize that we were the first as well. I'm just saying. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Can I tell you when Susan Harris, so Stan and I, we just watched this a little while ago. I waited until the last
This
minute
is
to
the
watch this,
first
just
time
like
you and
you.
I are doing it at the same time. Yeah,
I
because usually
know.
you watch it days in advance.
I waited until the last minute to watch it. So Stan sat down and watched it with me. It's a
Yeah.
cold, rainy day, little Oreos at school. So we watched it. And when Susan Harris came on the screen, Stan said, "Hey, can you pause for a second?" And so I paused it and I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "I want to go on record to say Susan Harris, she can get it.
I mean,
She is
she can.
hot."
She's hot.
That is
She's
what
hot.
Stan said.
She is hot. She is hot. I do want to say something too that last week when we recorded the episode, we recorded on Monday last week, right? I think so.
Yeah.
And
Or Tuesday,
one
Monday
of
or
those days,
Tuesday.
I forget. But I came off feeling hot because we recorded the day I think the special aired. So we recorded on Tuesday. And
But during the day before it had actually aired.
before it had aired. Yeah, so we hadn't seen it yet. And then I believe it was that night. If it wasn't that night, it was the next night. But I'm pretty sure maybe Kerri, because I know we texted that night, I think. But I had an event to go to that night. I had to go see George Clooney's new movie, Jay Kelly. It was the LA premiere of Jay Kelly. I'm holding up a picture of George Clooney if you're watching or if you're listening. And now I was feeling bitter about. I'm going to be honest. I was feeling bitter about about Out on the Lanai not being mentioned, likely not being mentioned. I was hoping maybe through Golden Con footage that maybe one of us would sneak in there, or maybe you know what I mean. Like maybe Sadie would get in there, or whatever it was.
Sure.
No, not at all. Nothing. Although there was the other drag groups were featured throughout
Yes.
so and that I'm really past guests of ours, of course, be like the past guests on the podcast were featured. So I'm really happy about that. That said, I was going into this premiere feeling a little bitter, feeling a little hurt, feeling a little like I've dedicated this and I need a mention. And then I go see George Clooney's new movie, and then I go to the after party at the Chateau Marmont. I did not fall like Valerie Cherish did in the comeback at the Chateau Marmont. I
I've
did
never
not.
been to the Chateau Marmont.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
Yeah.
You should go. We should go sometime.
A
That
lot of
said,
people die there. Sorry, didn't mean to put a damper on
wow,
it. Go ahead.
left turn.
It's
Well, I
true.
didn't.
Google how many
I
people died at the Chateau Marmont.
not going to do that right now. I didn't die. But as I'm there, who do I see in my eye line? A Mr. George Clooney. And so I decide to go up to Mr. George Clooney. Actually, I didn't decide. The publicist brought me up because I know her and whatever. But I go up to
You
George
said,
Clooney.
"May I have a minute with George?"
I didn't even ask for it. No, the publicist offered it because in those moments, just to give you a peek into Hollywood circles, when you're at a party like that and a celebrity of George Clooney's magnitude walks into the room, not only do you feel the shift of attention in the room all pivot to one corner,
Yeah.
but it becomes a hive of people that just sort of they're not talking to the celebrity, they're just sort of hovering around the celebrity. So you can't
Hmm.
really get if you wanted to say anything to the celebrity, you can't because there's these just weird people hovering but not talking to the celebrity. It's very
Yeah.
strange. And so I usually stand back and avoid those situations. But in this situation, the publicist said, "Would you like to?" Because whatever. So I said, "Yes, I would love that." And I went up to George through the publicist, and everyone was talking about his movie that night, Jay Kelly, which is a fantastic film. You all should see it. Or they were saying other things about him, hyping George Clooney. And I was thinking, you know what? I'm not on that goddamn ABC special, so I'm gonna go. I'm gonna one up myself, and I'm gonna talk with someone who was on the Golden Girls, Mr. George Clooney, and I'm gonna tell him that of all of his performances, my favorite performance of his is in that one episode in 1987 when he appeared on the Golden Girls. And what did I get? I got that $1,000,000 smile and laugh, and he loved it. It was the highlight of his night, I bet, because no one else was talking about the Golden Girls except for me. And he had such a lovely, wonderful smile when I said that. And I was like, the specials. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I did that thing." And he acknowledged the special and everything. And I didn't say I wasn't on it, whatever. But I did say I hosted a Golden Girls podcast called Out on the Lanai. And he was like, "That's a great title." And that was it. That was kind of that was the whole conversation because then all of the other creepy people around me wanted to get a moment with George Clooney, and I was like, "I must leave.
Right.
I'm gonna go eat some cheesecake now." There was cheesecake there, so I went and go eat some cheesecake.
Oh, well, that's
Um,
fitting.
it's a gag in the film that everywhere this celebrity George Clooney plays a celebrity in the movie, and everywhere he goes, somehow on his rider is a slice of cheesecake, even though he doesn't like cheesecake. So in the movie,
That's
cheesecake
weird.
is everywhere,
Yeah,
and at the
even though he
party,
doesn't
there
like
was
it.
cheesecake. Yeah. So anyway, at the party, I was able to. I might not. We might not be on this ABC special, but at least I was able to tell George Clooney how much I should have told him about our fight, our 10-year
I was
fight.
gonna say, yeah, did you ask him, "Hey,
I didn't.
when you were lying on that bed,
Were you sexually
did
attracted to Rue McClanahan?
did the character of Blanche give,
Yeah.
sexual vibes?"
But it just wasn't enough time, I couldn't do that.
Sure, of course.
Maybe I
Someone
guarantee you I
another
will interview him one day. I will.
uh, another journalist had to go up to him and ask him about his nipples when he played Batman, so I'm sure there were
Someone
lots
did.
of serious things.
Someone did actually. I heard
Someone
that.
always does.
I don't get it, but
It
whatever. I
was
mean,
the
I get
only
it.
bat suit that had nipples. It was like a thing. I think they were trying to make Batman really sexy that year.
Well, it worked. He was.
Okay, well, we do have some stuff to talk about, of course, regarding the special. Before we get into it, before we take a break, I just quickly want to mention in this week's Rusty Anchor Happy Hour, I found an interview with Golden Girls writer Tracy Gamble,
We love
where
Tracy so much. Go back and listen to the episode we did years ago with Tracy. He's a
I think it was like
sweetheart.
season 3. Tracy
Yeah.
was a sweetheart. He did an
Is.
episode is a
Is.
sweetheart. Oh, yeah, I meant like was a sweetheart when we interviewed him.
Yeah.
Um, in the documentary, there is mention of like a shouting match between B and Betty backstage, but they don't
Mhm.
really talk about like the context of it, just that they were filming the Christmas episode. So I think I found the context behind that in an interview with Tracy
Yeah.
Gamble.
I
So
think
we're
you did
gonna
too.
play a piece of that and just kind of talk about it a little bit more. Not to like belabor the gossip train of B versus Betty,
Yeah.
but it does give more insight into their dynamic of working
And
together,
it's not so
like they
it's not
talked about on the podcast.
I wasn't surprised what Tracy said either, and also too, as you'll hear on this episode as we react to the special, there are parts of the gossip train that were a big part of this special that I did not enjoy.
Same.
I
I
enjoyed the
yeah,
special, but we're gonna talk. We'll break it all down
we'll break it
because
down.
yeah, there are parts that I was a little like, do you really got to focus on that?
I know for something that was so short as the documentary was, I was like,
Exactly. It was 40 minutes, and they spent like 5 minutes on something that I'm like, come on, why?
I know, I know, I
Yeah.
know.
Anyway,
The other thing that's happening that's very exciting over at our Patreon is we're having another live Golden Girls watch along party Sunday, November 23rd at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It looks like people are still voting, but it looks like we're either going to watch A Little Romance or Journey to the Center of Attention. So people are really in the comments on Patreon having a really hard time deciding between those two. So God bless you all
I love
for
that.
trying to
Oh, this is
decide
gonna be a
between
fun one.
those 2 classics.
It's a
So
perfect honestly, you know what? I'm gonna build this as this watch along. And there is an option on Patreon that you can just join for the month, I guess. So like you could just join for the month and cancel the next month. But I will say the watch along this month and the watch along next month, because they are right around holidays. Like this one is right before Thanksgiving. Next one will probably be right before Christmas, I'm assuming. So because that week, well, New Year's and all that would be a mess. So
and I'll be
it,
having a baby.
and you'll be having a baby. So if you ever were curious about joining one of our watch alongs, these next 2 months would be perfect moments to join the watch along because there'll be a lot of people there, but it also will be a really festive, heartwarming, community loving way of getting yourself into the holiday spirit and just being with
Mhm.
people who share the exact same interest and love that we all do. And I think for me, as I mean, I'm biased because I love us and I love what we do, but like I do think it would really put me in a really nice spirit going into what sometimes can be a very lonely or depressing or anxiety ridden time. So I think for my mental I will admit I suffer. This time of year is like I have my cancer anniversary and I spend weeks just being depressed all the time and just trying to really fight through the depression and keep the smile on and keep doing the things and processing the things and staying medicated and all the things. And so having a moment like that is really helpful for me, and I want to encourage everyone to join along, and maybe it'll help you too.
That's very, very
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
And if you do want to check it out, you can go to patreon.com/Golden Girls Podcast.
Mhm.
And with that, should we take a little break and then come back and talk about the documentary special?
Yes, let's do it. I'm so excited.
And we are back talking about the Golden Girls documentary. HAlanScott/Sadie Pines overall thoughts.
Overall, my thoughts on the documentary is I enjoyed it. It felt like I did enjoy it. It was nice. It was a nice sort of like nice little side hug. It wasn't a full hug. I don't want to say it wasn't a full hug. I didn't feel a full embrace of the GG that I do when I go to Golden Con or whatnot. But I don't think you ever can get that. But I do think it was well made. There are parts of it that bothered me, which we'll get into, and it does feel sort of like I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it necessarily was produced by someone that's a massive Golden Girls fan. It feels like something that was produced by an editor producer that was tasked to creating a Golden Girls special. And I think oftentimes in these things you can tell when a Golden Girls fan does something and when someone who just has to do something does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, this documentary, I think for the average Golden Girls viewer or more of a casual fan, they probably did learn a lot of really cool, interesting stuff that they didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of what we did see in terms of the history of the show, how it came to be, the casting, like a lot
Hmm.
of that was in the True Tales documentary in 2002 that we covered on the podcast not long ago,
Yeah.
or the snippets of the women talking, are all clips that we've kind of seen. Um,
Hmm.
but I did enjoy, obviously, anytime you hear
There was a
from
lot of
people.
behind the scenes stuff that we haven't seen.
Yeah, yeah, there were some really cool, like, behind the scenes clips that they really enjoyed. Like, I don't think
Hmm.
I realized that they taped the Thursday night rehearsals. That was something that Marsha Posner Williams said, and so it was really cool to see some rehearsal
Hmm.
footage, which, we've
Hmm.
seen in other clips, but, there were some that we certainly hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Um, I thought it was interesting, in terms of them having on like Pamela Adlon, Cheryl Lee Ralph, Kelly Ripa. You have women of a certain age who are talking about what it's
Hmm.
like to have women of a certain age on television, which was
Yeah.
really, really interesting. And I liked that. Two clips that I pulled that I would love to play are two guest stars that, I mean, obviously they would be like pie in the sky dream guests for us, but two
Yeah.
people who guest starred on the show who actually talk about being on the show. The first one, your dear good friend George Clooney. So I did want to play these two moments just because, like, to have this documented, some of the actors who are now have gone on to become like bigger stars, to hear them talking about
Yeah.
it was just like
Yeah.
really, really fun. Even if we didn't learn a ton, even if it was just like a little snippet. So yeah, so let's
Mhm.
start by playing our George Clooney clip.
Okie dokie.
Had this wonderful scene with Rue McClanahan, who I just adored.
Bobby, does your mama know you carry that gun?
Blanche, I'm a grown man.
Betty White was as welcoming and as sweet and as funny as anybody I've ever met. B, she made me laugh harder than anybody. It was just a really fun time.
It was just a really fun time.
He had a great experience.
It
I
remind
love
hold on,
that
look at
B
this.
made him laugh.
Yeah, I know. I mean, George Clooney is one of those actors that, like, so often you rarely get an actor of George Clooney's caliber that quite literally experienced all of Hollywood in all of the ways, from guest starring on sitcoms in prominent guest starring roles to, becoming a massive billionaire movie star. Like, we don't have a lot of that anymore. And George Clooney is kind of the last of that breed. So, like, the fact that he was able to speak about his time on the Golden Girls while promoting a film that he will likely, because that was during the J. Kelly film that I mentioned, that interview came as a mid of his J. Kelly press that he's doing. And the fact that he, amid a film that he is likely going to get an Oscar nomination for, also wanted to talk about the Golden Girls is, I think, just says everything about George Clooney.
It says a lot about George Clooney. It also says a lot about the Golden Girls and how iconic of
Yeah.
a show it was. I mean, for George Clooney to
Mm-hmm.
sit down, to go through grooming, hair and makeup, to be lit, to sit down for an interview. Again,
Yeah.
he was probably there for, 20 minutes, but to make the time to do an interview about a single guest star appearance in the 80s,
Well,
I
I
feel
will
like he
say,
wouldn't have done that for any other show.
I will say, just to pull back a little bit, the Hollywood curtain, he didn't do it just for the Golden Girls. It was a part of a package interview that he was already doing for Jay Kelly.
Got
That
it. And they just
it
asked him
was
about it.
added on to the Golden Girls. So it was like you can tell that it was because he's wearing the same thing he had in his 60. Like there's a whole like you
Got it.
a little peek behind the
A
journalism curtain
little
here.
peek
It was
behind
a
the
like
curtain,
it's
sure.
it's sort of like what because when this it's sort of like what I'm doing with Glenn Close. You'll see video of my chat with Glenn Close that was part of All's Fair coverage, but you'll also see it in something that I'm doing down the line that you haven't seen yet. So like
Right.
it's that. It's that. But to your point, he didn't have to talk about the Golden Girls. He didn't have to go in that direction because he is a star of his caliber doing his thing, very focused on getting an Oscar nomination for this movie that he's doing.
I
And
love
so
that you
he
keep
didn't
holding up the photo
I mean, I have
of
it right
George
here. I have
Clooney.
to. But like he didn't have to do it and he did it and that says a lot.
Yeah, it was really fun to see him. I feel like in the clip he says, "I had this wonderful scene with Rue McClanahan," and I feel like there was more that was just cut out. And I was like,
Yeah.
"No, I want to know, what do you think about the scene?" Because it was the
Yeah.
scene on the bed. It was the scene on the bed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, of course it
Alas,
was.
maybe it's just one of those mysteries. I'm okay with it. So the second guest star clip that I want to play is the Mario Lopez clip.
Yeah.
Again, it's just so nice. He was so young, such a baby-faced boy when he was on this show.
Yeah.
And again, just to hear him speak about it, I don't know that I've ever heard him speak about it in an interview before. So that's why it was exciting for me and I wanted to play this moment.
Bad news. They're sending me back.
I guest starred playing Dorothy's prized pupil. She was my tutor and took me under her wing. The episode dealt with a pretty serious topic that's ironically pretty relevant today, and that's immigration.
This is your home. This is where you belong. You're what this country is all about.
And now I look at it as an adult, I'm like, wow, that's a pretty poignant episode for a sitcom.
It's Mario Lopez. Mario Lopez is such an interesting Hollywood figure in a similar context to George Clooney, but on a very different level. No shade to Mario Lopez, but he started off as just sort of like a regular TV like supporting actor who was like a heartthrob on a kid show, and then he somehow was able to craft a career as a child actor too, clearly, because on the Golden Girls he was a child actor. He somehow was able to craft a career out of his 15 minutes, which that were way long ago, into something of relevancy today in a lot of ways, being on Extra, whatever he's on, and going to fighting matches with Donald Trump. You can Google that. I'm not saying anything, but you can Google it. Like, so yes, like he's continued on in his own special way. That's all I'll say.
Okay. I didn't realize that, but bummer. Yeah, it was fun to hear Mario talk about his time on the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, agreed. It's anytime you can go from, being like a teenage starlet on an ensemble show and kind of
Mhm.
use that as a foray into hosting, like, good on you.
Or just maintaining a Hollywood career because it's not
Sure.
easy. And I give him credit for that. That's a hard thing to do. So yeah. And the fact that he also still thinks back fondly on the Golden Girls. I mean, I don't think you're hard pressed to find anybody out there that's gonna be like, wow, that was a shit day. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really exist. Like even on the special, one of the I think writers or something said like the thing is, we had a lot of fun making this show. Like everyone was having a good time.
But of course, the guest that we were most excited to see on this documentary was Susan Harris, Goddess Susan Harris.
The one, the only, I mean, that woman, I can't, I don't think, has she done an interview since the 1980s? I'm sure she has.
She has done, I've read written interviews that she's done,
Yeah.
but I don't know that I've seen any on
Yeah.
TV or on YouTube clips
This
or
feels
anything.
particularly rare. And what's interesting about, I think, Susan Harris is that I don't think she gets the acclaim that she's worthy of. Do you know what I mean? Like, in
Yes.
terms of, like, we talk about the great writers of television or the great people, like, you know what I mean? We think of, like, and of course the actors are always going to get, or the actor creators are going to get more attention. But, like, you know, to me, she's up there with like a Norman Lear in that she created pretty iconic television shows and characters and spinoffs that are still in syndication today. And frankly, like, even though Norman Lear was incredible and you know, has a history of stuff, his shows aren't as in syndication as Susan Harris's. But yet we're not talking about Susan Harris in the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I wonder if it's because,
She's a woman.
maybe, but also I wonder, Norman Lear kept working,
Mhm.
and I think Susan Harris kind of stepped out of the spotlight for a while. And I also think that just the Golden Girls as an entity is so massive and
Yeah.
so big that sometimes, weirdly, even though it would exist without her, it wouldn't exist without her. She gets kind of lost in the shuffle
I
because
agree.
the focus is on the Golden Girls, it's on the actors, it's on the topics that they covered, and less about Susan Harris.
Yeah, I fully agree. And also too, I mean, I think the interesting thing about it is, you know, she was approached to sort of do this. Like, it wasn't like necessarily she sought out to sell this show. Like, she had to, like, literally NBC had to tell her, well, if you write it, we'll put it on. Like, there's literally
Yeah.
a quote of them saying that. So she almost had to be, even then, persuaded to do
Hmm.
this. So I think that also maybe speaks to the lack of recognition that she gets today, is because, you know, she, I think, intentionally or unintentionally, I don't know, she's always kind of had like a very standoff relationship with Hollywood, I think, in a lot of ways
Hmm.
too, and the way the industry works. And frankly, I don't think that is an uncommon thing among women in Hollywood. I really don't. I don't think, like, I liken her to, I was thinking about this watching it. Like, who in entertainment is comparative to Susan Harris? And the woman that I came up with that I think also doesn't get enough credit is Nancy Meyers, in that Nancy Meyers, the writer director of films like Something's Gotta Give, It's Complicated, you know, The Holiday, films like that. And also the writer, she may have even directed Parent Trap, I forget. But also Father of the Bride. Like, she has a long career of creating massive hits. And yet I don't believe Nancy Meyers is given the recognition she deserves as a woman in this industry who created massive hits for Hollywood. And yet, why isn't she directing movies all the time right now? Why isn't she? I mean, Steven Spielberg seemingly is putting out a movie like every other year. And yet, Nancy Meyers delivered films that grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. Why isn't she still directing movies in this way? So, like, I do think there's
Could be her
kind of,
choice.
it could be her choice. It could
Hmm.
be her choice. But at the same time, you get my point, is that, like, I don't feel like we give some of these women the recognition that they deserve.
Hmm. I will say, like, the difference too between Nancy Meyers and Susan Harris, like you said, Nancy Meyers was producing hits and hits and hits and hits. And if you say, oh, it's like a Nancy Meyers movie,
You
or
know,
this wasn't
yeah.
Nancy, Nancy Meyers, where I bet if you were to do like a Billy on the Street with, you know, less than hardcore Golden Girls fans, and you were to ask who created the show, I guarantee you a good amount of people wouldn't be able to answer that. And
Yeah, maybe.
one thing we learned from when we covered the True Tales documentary was that, Susan wrote the first few scripts and then she kind of backed off. She wasn't
Yeah.
on set. She wasn't in the writer's room. Scripts would get delivered to her. She would
She
do
really only
rewrites on
came
them.
back at the end to do that last, you know what I mean? Like, to close it out.
Yeah. Aside from writing episodes like,
Yes.
she would jump in to write episodes. But yeah, it sounds like she got the show off the ground and then didn't really have any interest in being like incredibly embedded in the show on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis, that she wanted to kind of do it on her own terms and in her own time.
Yeah.
And respect,
Full on
respect,
respect, full on respect,
full on respect.
and we have a clip of her at the very end of the doc, that I think really it's just nice. It's just a nice clip. Should we
It's
play it?
really, really sweet. Yeah, let's play that Susan clip.
I'm going to be 85 on my next birthday. I'm now Sophia. Getting old is not the end of life. Getting close to it, but it's not the end. There still are reasons to be alive and to be happy and to be interested and interesting.
And that really like personifies kind of Susan Harris's work, at least within the context of the Golden
Yeah,
Girls, in a
yeah,
lot
what a
of
full
ways.
circle moment. That was the whole
Yeah.
point of the show, is that, these women reach a certain age, their husbands die or they get divorced, their kids move out, but they're
Mhm.
not, society may want to put these kind of women out to pasture, like, oh, you lived your life, but no, they still have so much more life to
Yeah.
live. They're still dating and they're still go on adventures and they can still
Mhm.
work if they want to. So yeah, it is kind of nice to see Susan Harris. Again, I cannot believe she's 85. But it is nice to see her kind of come full circle with that notion and that way of life herself.
Yeah, fully. Well, we saved some of the things that we had a problem with this special for the second segment because I feel like, save the worst for last. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just like that Vanessa Williams song, you went and saved the worst for last. Before we do take a break and get into that, I do want to give the documentary one more compliment. I think the bookends of the documentary were really nice. I think
Mhm.
the way that it began with, like, you have all of these people talking about the Golden Girls and how much they love it and the wide reach that it had. And then at the end, the music was beautiful. It was very nostalgic. I think it was
Yeah.
either like Mark Cherry or Jamie Wooten who teared up a little bit. It
Mhm.
was it was beautiful and touching there at the very
Yeah.
end, especially hearing that moment from Susan. So I appreciated the pacing, I appreciated the edit, and just the overall tone of the
Yeah.
documentary.
I agree. I agree. So, should we come back with what we hated?
Yeah, let's go out on our peach and come back with our pit. Yes, absolutely.
And we're back. Okay, here's something in watching it. I didn't have a lot of problems with the special. Most of it was done fine and very well and gave us the information we needed. And it was wonderful to see so many people that, we have been on this podcast or that we love so much in this special. Marsha Posner Williams, we love you so much. That said, I don't like, and I find this is in a lot of specials on the Golden Girls. This is in a lot of things about the Golden Girls. And it it really irks me, and that is the way in which people like to talk about Estelle Getty's memory loss during the run of the Golden Girls and how she had problems with her lines and all of these things. And I think of it like this, and I might listen, I might be biased because I come from a childhood of someone with a disability, so I'm very aware of things like that and people focusing on things that they shouldn't necessarily focus on because it doesn't necessarily define the person and the work that they do and the life that they lead. And so the fact that in retrospect, in a special that is about honoring the legacy of the Golden Girls, the fact that they devoted seemingly 5 minutes to people talking about Estelle Getty having trouble remembering lines and that she was suffering from dementia and all these different things, and the fact that Estelle Getty didn't necessarily talk about it all that much, I don't think it's necessarily our place. Do we go around talking about Susan Harris's chronic fatigue syndrome all the time? I mean, yes, we in the Golden Girls will do, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't talk about the ailments of other people in the way that we talk about Estelle Getty's early onslaught dementia that she seemingly was having during we don't know that. These people aren't medical doctors. She wasn't sharing this information with people. And so the fact that she sometimes forgot her lines, well, guess what? We also, other people forgot their lines and they all were older too. Are we ascribing that to all of them? It really just kind of bothers me that there's so much focus on that when it seems kind of irrelevant to the conversation or the tone of the doc.
Yeah, there were two things, and we'll talk about the other one in a minute, but there were two things in the documentary that, look, they were given the documentary flew by. I at one point paused it and I was like, oh my gosh, there's only 10 minutes left. It was,
Yeah.
what, an hour, 45 minutes? How
No, it
long
was
was
just
it?
40. It was 42 minutes.
42 minutes.
Yeah.
And in that time, yeah, for them to spend a few minutes talking about Estelle using the cue cards. They also attributed it to
Why?
two different things. At one point, someone mentioned stage fright. Another point, someone mentioned her dementia. And yeah, it did feel a little out of place because as much as you and I love a very specific Golden Girl story we've never heard before,
Of course.
Chef George telling us about why the mug was in the
Yep.
refrigerator thing.
Yep.
We love those things, but this was something that it was, enough of, specific thing that it just didn't quite fit into the overall celebration of the Golden Girls and, how the bigger things that they were talking about. I feel like they could have spent a little more time talking about specific episodes that tackled issues that were really
Mhm.
important at the time, and they did mention it, and I think at one point I have in my notes here, was it Jamie Wooten who talks about how, they wanted to bring Clayton back after they had the first Clayton episode with Blanche to announce that he's getting married, to see if Blanche would actually truly be accepting of her gay brother. And they talk about the mail that they got, how it was mostly positive, but there was some negative feedback. I really would have appreciated them talking more about the issues that they covered on the show and why it was so important. Just dive in a little bit deeper to that. And you
Yeah.
don't need to mention Estelle and the cue cards.
Well, yeah, you don't, but also too, you spend so much time talking about how Betty White is an icon of the beginnings of television. That's a great conversation to have. You talk so much about B. Arthur and her Broadway background and how that defined her work ethic. That's great to talk about. You talk about, Rue McClanahan's relationship and how she got to the part with Blanche, and that's a great thing to talk about. Hey, instead of maybe talking about Estelle Getty needing cue cards, how about you talk about Estelle Getty being an incredible Broadway actress who got her
Yeah.
start in acting later in life, which is incredible, and that she went on to star in one of Broadway's most defining queer plays ever to exist on Broadway, and that largely is the reason why she's on the Golden Girls. That is a conversation you have. That is something you applaud someone in the memory and the legacy of someone for. We don't remember Estelle Getty because she suffered from dementia at the end of her life and had
Yeah.
Alzheimer's. That is not the memory of Estelle Getty. The memory is this iconic, amazing woman lived a life that was so over the top and large and gave us so much. The
Hmm.
most the character that appeared on more sitcoms than any other character in the history of television. Like, this woman gave us so much, and none of that is in this doc. And yet I'm left remembering that she had dementia, and that feels
Yeah.
like a little tacky, in my opinion.
Yeah. I didn't love it. I did not love it. The other thing that I also didn't love that I know you didn't love is the Betty and B, the
I'm
feuding
over
of it
it. I'm
all.
over it. I'm over that.
That they spent, and again, I know we're going to talk about it on the Rusty Anchor Happy Hour, but the only reason why we are is because they talked about it here.
And it gives
And
it context. The story that we're showing on that Tracy shares that we're doing on the Resting Anchor Happy Hour gives it respectful context that
mhm.
allows, because so often they sensationalize it, and I do think this documentary does that. And what Tracy does is he rationalizes it in a way that is, I think, very respectful.
Yeah, it's a little bit more into, he just takes a little bit of a deeper dive into the
Yeah.
dynamic that was Betty and B. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like it just feels like, we've been just knocked over the head constantly with, did you know
And
Betty
we
and B
hear it a
hated each
lot.
other and ba 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 ba,
Yeah. We
and it's
hear it a
like,
lot because we're in the world, and I get it. But at the same time, so much of this special was geared towards people who have a tangential relationship with the Golden Girls. They maybe just like it in a casual way, not like we
yeah.
do because we're all freaks and we obsess over it. And the fact that they spent so much time about a feud. I get what they're trying to do because it's sensationalism and
And people
it's
are gonna go, "Oh,
intriguing
yeah, I always heard I heard about that there was a
and
feud.
that
Ooh, maybe they'll tell me more." Yeah.
and then that's that dominoes effect into us being the Golden Girls mega fans that we are. Then when the people who are tangential fans of the Golden Girls encounter us in the real world, not you and I, but I'm talking about everyone listening to this podcast, the people who are hardcore Golden Girls fans, then they bring up that feud and it causes all of us to have a big eye roll because it's like, why are you focusing on a feud? They created something so amazing and they had a wonderful working relationship. Like, how does that have anything to do with any of this?
Yeah, in the context of a 42-minute documentary that is celebrating the Golden Girls and that features so many amazing people involved in the show, like people
Mhm.
that we've, again, I'm just looking at like the list of writers and the executives. We had Warren Littlefield, Tony Thomas, Kathy Spear, Barry Finaro, Winifred Hervey, Mort Nathan, Terry Grossman, Terry Hughes, Jamie Wooten, Mark Cherry. You have all of
Yeah,
these people. You have Susan Harris. You have, to speak to their own experience working on the show and to spend the
yeah,
time, yeah, talking about the feud when you've got 42 minutes to celebrate the Golden Girls. It did feel like it felt like it caved to a pressure of like that sensationalism of like everybody loves a good feud, so
yeah,
let's and people have heard rumors, so let's get a story out of it. And
yeah,
they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But yeah, those were kind of the two things that I feel like could have been left out and instead replaced with a more celebratory segment. And again, just maybe
yeah.
spending a little bit more time talking about the issues that they tackled through specific episodes and why the show is so impactful in that way.
Another thing that I noticed with the doc that I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong because maybe I just missed it. But I believe that the word drag was never mentioned once over the
Mm,
course of the special. It was shown. They showed
hmm
drag queens. They certainly showed drag queens. But they never said the word drag. It was always live events or live
Live
whatever.
shows, right?
And I think that speaks a little bit to the climate we're living in, which is depressing to me. But also, I do think that unfortunately misses out on something that I think is really special within the Golden Girls community is that it is a very inclusive community. It's a very affirming community where so many and one of the things that I think, so rarely in our world is of entertainment and the separation that we exist within, the lanes that we exist within, I find more and more straight people and straight allies come to Golden Girls drag shows, and it's so affirming and it's so rewarding in a lot of ways because it shows that there are people out there who might not be a part of the community, but they support the community. They have our
Right.
backs. We visually see them in the audience having our backs, and in a way that we're all celebrating this one thing, and also the queer experience appreciating the Golden Girls. I think is a really important piece of the context of how the Golden Girls has lived on. I think there's you could make an argument that the reason why the Golden Girls still remains and has always remained so incredibly relevant over the years is because of straight women and gay men. And the fact that that conversation wasn't and the drag conversation wasn't necessarily a part of the documentary also kind of bothered me because or just say the word drag. Like
Yeah.
just because, there aren't a lot of shows out there where cisgendered women are doing Golden Girls live shows. It's always drag queens that are doing these shows. And for the most part, I'm sure there's one out there that maybe I'm not aware of. But it's I would say vast and large, it is mostly drag queens. And so say the word drag queens because there's a reason why drag queens are the ones doing it. And there's a reason why it's so special within drag spaces, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, these are all really, really good points. I'm also curious just to hear like from the audience when we post this episode
Yeah.
what everybody else thought.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I would love that. Let us know. I mean, we'll do a post on Instagram of one of these, something from this episode. So in the comments, let us know what you think, what you thought of this special. I mean, I enjoyed it. Let me just say that right now. I think I can give the impression that I hated it, and I did not hate it at all. I'm so grateful that they made it. I'm so glad that it exists. I'm so glad that the 40th got the attention that I think it deserves. And I do think it was very well made. I do think it was very well
Mm-hmm.
made. And even though it was kind of a bit like a very generic Golden Girls celebration, I'm up for any Golden Girls celebration anywhere at any time.
Yeah, same. It was a nice celebration. Couple of notes, but otherwise, I really enjoyed it.
And I'm still bitter that Kerri's not in it and that we weren't mentioned. And I'm going to stay that way. Should we take a break and come back with our golden takeaways?
Yes, let's.
Mm. And we are back with our golden takeaways, which is a nugget of truth or inspiration that you can apply to your lives or the lives of our listeners. Kerri, what's your golden takeaway from this episode?
My GT is actually a question for you.
Oh, I'm
So,
excited.
so we get this documentary celebration on the 40th anniversary. Do you think they will ever make another one? Like the 50th anniversary? Like, do you think this is it in terms of a big, Disney, ABC, Hulu, like an officially sanctioned
Yeah, I
Golden
can see
Girls
them doing
anniversary?
it. I can see them doing something else. I can. I mean, what's special about the 40th is that, and I think maybe they might be remiss that they didn't get it, but that, so many of the people who still worked on the Golden Girls are alive, with the exception of the
Yeah.
girls. And so I think this one is really special because it does fit within the lifetimes of so many people who worked on the Golden
Mm-hmm.
Girls. In 10 years, that could be a different story. And so the fact that this exists and these interviews and these conversations are archived, I think is really important. But yeah, I do think in 50 years, I think the tone of it will shift in 10 years, where the conversation will be more about the fandom and the impact the show's had and
Mm-hmm.
less about the making of the show. I think that will
Right.
be just there. And what will exist is, and maybe we'll be invited to that then.
Maybe. Hopefully we'll still be here.
I think we will be. I think we will be.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I was just curious. Like, I was like, okay, for the 50th anniversary, are they just going to do like a marathon, or are they going to revisit it in a new way? Because you think
Yeah.
about all of the interviews that they got for this special. Another thing I wish they would do is like release, that there were people that told really, really, really cool stories that they just didn't have time for. I really wish that they would, on Hulu, have like an extra section where they post all of those, because you know what? Hardcore Golden Girls fans are going to watch every single one.
Oh, every single one. And they're going to love it. They're
Yeah.
going to love it.
So let's see if we can manifest that. What is your golden takeaway?
My golden takeaway from this episode is it's kind of on brand for me. I just want to acknowledge Terry Hughes is a hot piece of man. Even
He's
at
really
this,
good looking.
oh my God. If you hated the special, one part of it that was amazing is looking at Terry Hughes, because that man, both when they flash back to him winning his Emmy back in the day, and he had that beautiful sort of just like very he's the George Clooney of these women. Like he's just handsome. And even
They
today,
all had a crush on him.
oh my
I think
God.
even at one point, Estelle Getty says that she asked him, like, do you stray? And he was like, no. And she was like, oh, okay.
Do you stray? No,
I'm assuming he was married.
He is so handsome. That's my golden takeaway.
That's a beautiful golden
Ooh.
takeaway. Well,
Thank you.
This has been our coverage of the Golden Girls documentary. Like we said, let us know what you all thought about it. We've already gotten a lot of text from friends in the Golden Girls community who have shared their thoughts, and now we'd love to know yours. So hit us up on socials. Let us know.
Also,
yes,
I do want to say one thing about the community before we go, because I've been meaning to say this on the last few episodes, and I haven't done it because I'm bad and I'm busy and I'm bad at remembering things. But to our listeners, we both need to send, we all should send some congratulations to a mega Golden Girls fan, Nikki C, who's been a listener of this podcast for a long time. We DM on Instagram sometimes. She recently got married. And I just wanted to say,
Nikki.
Congrats to Nikki. Nikki, I believe works at Disney or something. So she was giving me all the info on when the special was coming out and everything, which was really excited. So Nikki, you are fantastic, and we congratulate you. So much. So much.
So much. Thank you, Nikki. Congrats on your nuptials. I hope you wore a toilet paper wedding dress.
Me too. Send us a wedding picture so that we can post it on our stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it for this week's episode of Out on the Lanai. You can catch us back here next week for more Golden Girls greatness. Remember also that you can join the GGVIP Club or even just check it out at patreon.com/Golden Girls podcast. We got a lot of fun stuff going on over there. We have another cool interview with someone who worked on the show that we're in the middle of lining up right now. So lots of great bonus content coming your way over at the Patreon.
And of course, we are part of Mom, Moguls of Media. So go subscribe to Mommy Plus. Also, we are Golden Girls Pod on Twitter, Out on the Lanai Out on Lanai Official on Instagram, Golden Girls Pod on Facebook, and I am HAlanScott / Sadie Pines on everything.
And I'm Squidzy on Instagram and Squid Eat Squid on Twitter. And if you want to do something else nice for the podcast, you can leave us a lovely rating and review wherever you get your podcast, because it'll help more people discover us and join our lovely kick-ass community of Golden Girls fans.
And remember,
as always,
stay golden.
Stay golden.
I'm going to eat myself some Frito.
Well, that is a loud bag.
Out on the Lanai is not endorsed by Whit Thomas Harris Productions, Touchstone Television, Disney, or any of its subsidiaries. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only.
All names, pictures, audio, and video clips of the Golden Girls are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective trademark and/or copyright holders.